Natural light, sunlight, happy Sunday. So I titled this specifically because I know I'm not as bad as I'm making it sound. And I think it's because the biggest thing is back pain, okay? When I lay down for too long, or if I'm sitting still in the same position, I have to move my body because my body gets stiff. And that happens for everybody. Like if you're somebody who doesn't move your body and you complain about pain, that's why. If you don't move it, you'll lose it. Your body's meant to be lubed up from the inside out. So essentially, in we need to be mobile. It's the way we're designed. Whether that's walking, sitting up, standing up, going up and down, like things that challenge our body to strengthen it. And also because really essentially, if you sit still long enough, you develop sores. You also develop numbness. You can cut off your circulation. And yeah, like another thing, I was like trying to put my legs up and my legs were so tight. Oh my gosh. After my surgery, when I first went to stand up, she said, "Okay, we need to get you ready to go." And I was still kind of woo in and out of it. So I went to use the bathroom. My knees literally buckled underneath me. And I was like, oh, never had that happen before. Like I could not stand up straight. And it was so comical, at least to me it was, because I'm like walking, with my knees bent and crouched, walking to the bathroom so that I could use the bathroom. And it's so funny too, because I didn't share this, but when I essentially was going in for the surgery, I hadn't done my morning BM, and I'm pretty regular. I have been mostly. I've had some constipation issues still as a result of other things, it seemed, and I think the implants are part of that. So I went to go use the bathroom, and I was so happy because prior to the surgery, my concern was, I hope I don't end up having to go to the bathroom while I'm in surgery. That's a long time. So wasn't able to do it beforehand, but when I went to go use the bathroom, whoo, I was so relieved because I went in the bathroom. Because otherwise I didn't want to end up being constipated. Like that's the worst thing. And after my appendectomy surgery, oh my gosh, I was constipated for days. It was unbelievable, uncomfortable. It was horrible. Anyway, so I'm over here sitting, enjoying the sounds of the birds. It's kind of like overcast. It was nice out earlier when I did my other short videos. Drinking my escape route apple spice, although it tastes more like a lemonade. So delicious. Going into this, I shared that I was preparing myself emotionally and mentally and physically. Now, over the past several months, I had been, kind of comfort eating, and I was catching myself even through the holidays. I know I wasn't the only one. This is a common theme. And I was okay with it because I was okay with recognizing why. I was preparing myself for this Explant from like at least September. It took a lot of, if you only knew the backstory, because I had to go for several MRIs where, because I had said I was allergic to the contrast, which I had a reaction years ago, I just don't know why it wasn't documented in my records. So when I went to go to get the MRIs, they're like, well, we're supposed to give you contrast for this particular MRI, but then it says that you're allergic, so we can't do it. I'm like, okay, what do you want me to do here? Well, we can't give it to you. I'm like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. So what I ended up doing was going back to the nurse from the plastic surgeon and saying, listen, you're just gonna have to go to a completely different facility and just schedule me an appointment with somebody completely different than the one I went to initially. And it was in Tampa. And just the funny backstory on that, the woman in the actual MRI unit was super, super nice. She was very helpful. And she put the contrast in. Apparently I was the last person in there, and whoever was working out front, they locked up. So when I went to leave and I said goodbye to the lady, I went to leave and the place was like there was a whole cage thing pulled down and the lights were out. I went back to her and I said, strangest thing. Apparently they forgot to check on the patients that are still here. I said, because there's nobody out there and it's locked. She shook her head like, oh, you got to be kidding me. They're not supposed to do that. So she's like, I'll walk you out around the back so you can go. But I'm like, oh, this is so irritating, so frustrating. So that was my experience getting the MRI, but that was just crazy. And I didn't even bother doing a video of that one because it was just such a crazy mess. And when I went there initially, because they still enforced wearing the, face diaper, I was like, are you kidding me? I'm like, what do you do with people who have PTSD? She goes, I don't know. We've never had that. I said, no, what it is you're not allowed to ask. And you just assume it's okay, and it isn't, So anyway, yeah, life. So the other funny thing is when I first went in for my surgery, I was asking the anesthesiologist, because I think I mentioned about how I'd lost a lot of hair in my previous videos. When I had my appendectomy, for about a month afterward, my hair was coming out so profusely, so bad, that I was like, oh my gosh. I was a little freaked out because my hair's pretty nice. I have pretty good thick hair for this type of hair. But it was coming out and I was freaking out because nobody wants to lose their hair. And I'm like, what's this caused by? My girlfriend's a hairdresser and she said a lot of people end up having a lot of hair loss after after anesthesia. I'm like, really? That makes a whole lot of sense. I never considered or even thought about that. And then another girlfriend said to me, she always asked what kind of anesthesia they'd use. Well, here's the funny part. When I asked, they're like, well, we use general. I'm like, well, that's not really helping me understand what kind of anesthesia you're using. I explained to the anesthesiologist when I got into the operating waiting space. I said, I just want to let you know the last time I had general anesthesia, I had a lot of hair loss for like about a month afterward. And the guy was like, I've never heard of that before. And then he's like, I guess I'm going to do some research. So I'm going to sit down with a computer right now and I'm going to research it. So he starts researching it and he's talking to the other people who are working with him. And other people are saying, oh yeah, that's a thing. That's a big thing with the anesthesia. And so it was like, it was kind of funny, kind of witnessing this whole like, well, I just learned something today. Everybody was so friendly, so kind, and so beautiful at the VA. I couldn't have been, I'm telling you, the universe always takes care of me. I feel so blessed. The woman rolling me in, we were just, both of us shaking our heads about having to put on this stupid thing. And she's like, yeah, I know. It's all, we were both talking about the whole lie of the situation. But anyway, and there's a lot of people in healthcare that refuse to, as you can see, a lot of people lost jobs over saying no to this thing, So I was very, very blessed in my whole process. That's all I can say. And then when they went to discharge me, though, that dizziness and the nausea, that's when they had to give them anti-nausea medication. That was the last thing I took. I haven't taken anything since. No pain medication. They gave, I went by the pharmacy and picked up what they gave me. They gave me acetaminophen, ibuprofen, which is so bad on the liver and the stomach. I mean, we used to call Motrin vitamin M when I was in the military. And the other thing, they gave me oxycodone. I don't know about anybody else. The first and only time I ever took that stuff made me so freaking sick. Because I don't know if it's because my body just doesn't tolerate it. My body does not like pharmaceuticals, period. So yeah, I haven't taken anything, and I've basically been drinking juices, taking the magnesium glycinate to relax my body and to give it the extra help that it needs to heal. As far as pain, like I said before, I'm just tender on the sides where the tubes apparently are. And, I keep loving on myself. And honestly, I mean, just taking off my bra the other day was emotional, and I didn't expect that. And it's because I was prepared for it, but at the same time, I wouldn't change a thing. I am so grateful I got those 2 sacks out of my body. Like, that was a different time of my life. I am just really blessed and grateful because we don't stop to think about the ramifications, or, it was considered safe back in the day. And I used to trust my doctor. I was the kid when I used to go to Dr. Madigan, who was our family doctor. I would go to Dr. Madigan sick with a big smile on my face, like, "Hi, Dr. Madigan, how are you today?" He's like, "This is the happiest sick kid I've ever treated." Like, that's how my disposition has been throughout most of my life. That genuinely, there's been a little naivete. I get it. You know why? Because in my heart of hearts, I still see and believe in the good of all people. But as I've gotten older, as I've learned to discern, to trust my gut, and to question when something arises, when I feel it within my body, because that's trusting and honoring your body's wisdom. So, in the space of all this craziness, and just really recognizing that, I get uncomfortable because if I sit too long, I stiffen up, my body is achy, I need a back rub, my shoulders, I can only move so much, and I'm not trying to like stretch or cause any type of contraction of my pectoral muscles. And they are still like this. I don't know if it's because the areas are numb. I mean, I feel them and I get little twinges, like the nerves are coming back online in some areas. That's essentially how I interpret it. You get little zzz. It's like the nerves are reconnecting. And I am a really quick healer. So even when I had them put in, they're like, "Oh, you can't do anything for 46 weeks." I was in the gym. My body was like, "Yep, we're good. We're good to go." And I started watching some videos today that, first off, I hadn't thought about it before, because you can find videos of anything online. So I went into some Explant videos. I had to like kind of condition my mind, like, okay, don't freak out. I put things on fast forward on the speeding, the speed setting on the YouTube videos. I watched a few Explants that were just like the one I had, and I was like, oh, okay, that wasn't so bad, which made me feel more confident in the procedure I just went through that I didn't look up before. I just knew the most important thing was to get the implant out with the casing around it. Your body creates what we call the capsule. When they say a full capsulectomy, an en bloc, essentially what's happening is they're removing the muscle, because I was under the muscle, and away from the rib cage, the capsule, not just cutting through that and removing the implant. You need to get the whole thing out, because your body wouldn't create that unless there was a foreign body in your body. And so if you were to leave that in, it's going to be another like extra lumpy thing in there, and that's not normal. So that was why it needed to come out, because otherwise they would leave it whole or partially intact. Initially, when the nurse spoke to me, she said, well, he'll take out whatever he needs to. And if he needs to, if it's okay, he'll leave it in there. I'm like, oh no, we're not taking any chances, was my theory. Because if I did have the rupture, which it did turn out to be, that would at least protect and contain it, which is what I saw in a lot of the videos. Like, I saw 2 videos. In fact, I watched and did not know this, that Mel Robbins, she's the 54321 woman. She's also the high 5. And I didn't know she had an explant last year. And I watched her video, and she also apparently had a rupture. And she said all the 4, I think it was in there for 4 years, she said that not once did she have an accident or any type of situation that would have caused the rupture. She says, that means I had a defective device inside of my body. So even in my case, I've never struck my breasts, and I don't know, like with the seatbelts and the accidents and the